Hi everyone, it's Agnieszka from 5 Minute Language. Welcome to my channel. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and give this video a thumbs up. So today's video is about language learning for introverts. Many people who I have met who learn foreign languages are actually introverts, which might come as a surprise to some people because many people actually think that you need to be an extrovert if you want to speak a foreign language, because speaking a foreign language requires courage, it requires you to be brave if you want to be able to speak to other people in another language. But being shy is not actually the same as being an introvert. And you can perfectly be fluent in a foreign language without being an extrovert. The terms introvert and extrovert basically relate to where you get your energy from. So an introvert will get their energy from being by themselves, and social situations might drain them a little bit, and an extrovert will be the opposite of that. So that's a generalization, but that's essentially how it works. So if you're an introvert, you don't necessarily have to be shy, you just get your energy from being alone. When I asked my Facebook community whether they would be interested in tips for introverts on language learning, over 90% of people said that they would be. So that made me think that making a video on this topic would be a good idea. And it also showed me that there are actually a lot of introverts in the language learning community. So if you think of yourself as an introvert, then I hope this video will help you out. So my first tip relates to listening and observing. So if I were to make a generalization about introverts, I have to for the purpose of this video, introverts prefer listening and observing to speaking. If you're an introvert and you want to learn a foreign language, you can really use that quality to your advantage. What I mean by that is that when you listen and observe language, you will be able to notice little things that an extrovert wouldn't necessarily notice. For example, little sounds, sound combinations, different new words and expressions and how they're used. Different word combinations and how they're used together in sentences. You will be able to notice things like stress and accent and pronunciation, and when you observe, you will be able to absorb it a little bit better. You will have time to process it in your head, whereas an extrovert wouldn't be necessarily interested in that because they would be willing to speak rather than observe and listen. So really make sure that you use that quality to your advantage and observe the language that you're learning. When you're done listening, you can write it down. You can write down all the different observations that you made about the language, all the new words that you heard, and then look them up and base your learning around that. Sometimes when you're an introvert, you might feel under pressure to speak because somebody's talking to you and you constantly think in your head, I want to say something, but I need to think about it first before I speak, and then you just end up not speaking. But that's okay. Despite that kind of social pressure to speak, it's important to remember that people actually like listeners. People like to know that somebody is listening to what they're saying, that somebody's interested in what they're saying. So if you're speaking to an extrovert who is willing to speak and you're listening to them, they won't think anything bad. They're more likely to think, oh, that's a nice person, that's an interesting person, they're listening to me, they are interested in what I'm saying. And you can build a positive relationship based on that. So my next tip is to do with focusing on tasks that take a lot of attention. So another generalization, but introverts, I think, like to focus on longer tasks that require a lot of attention. Well, they're better at it than extroverts. An extrovert will just want to go out there and speak no matter what. They will want to practice very small chunks of language that they've just learned immediately, whereas an introvert would be more likely to focus on a bigger task in more detail, understand it very well, devote their full attention to it, and only then go out and practice. So again, I'm going to say use this quality to your advantage. For example, you can focus on a grammar point understand it in detail, or you can focus on a group of vocabulary and learn it in detail, understand how the words are used in sentences, what kind of expressions they go in, and how you pronounce them exactly, and then that will allow you to then go and speak, because you will feel more ready. So if speaking causes you some anxiety, then being able to understand the grammar or the language or the vocabulary in advance will help you get rid of that anxiety and really kind of improve your confidence. So my third tip is quite a basic one. I'm sure you've thought about this before and you've done it before, but my third tip is talk to yourself. So introverts, like I said before, will be more likely to listen in social situations than speak. And they might be quite good at kind of producing language in their head. So preparing for a conversation by formulating sentences in your head. And that's personally something that I have always done when I've been sort of learning languages. I always talk to myself when I learn a language, and that's definitely helped me improve my fluency, my pronunciation, my general sort of ability to speak the language. I also do that when I prepare for filming YouTube videos. Actually, I kind of do the video by speaking to myself without recording, just to become a little bit confident with the content. And I know that many people on YouTube do that, and it might be because many people who do YouTube are actually introverts, because if you think about it, you put yourself out there for thousands of people to watch, but actually what you're doing really is speaking to a camera at home. So so speak to yourself, try to formulate sentences in your head before you go out there, if that's something that helps you get rid of the anxiety that often goes with speaking a foreign language. My next tip relates to challenging yourself. So being an introvert sometimes can turn into a bit of an excuse, where you say to yourself, well, I'm an introvert, so I'm not interested in practicing my speaking, I'm not interested in getting involved in conversations. And it can be something that kind of begins to hold you back, because you stay inside your comfort zone, you don't step outside, and so you don't really grow. And growth can really only happen when you challenge yourself, when you do things that scare you, or things that are difficult. So I encourage you to do that, and you can do that by preparing in advance again. So you can, for example, learn set phrases, or think about a conversation that you're about to have and prepare sentences that you're going to say. Practice different expressions, practice saying your sentences in your head, and that way you will be prepared. So it won't be a complete shock when you step outside of your comfort zone, go to a meetup or schedule a conversation on Skype with a native speaker. You will be more prepared and more confident. And my final tip is to do with visualizing situations. So visualization is a technique where you basically close your eyes and imagine what it's going to be like to have a conversation with a native speaker or somebody who speaks the language you're learning. So you can imagine what it's going to feel like for you, what it's going to look like, how the conversation will sort of develop. When you imagine that in your head and you imagine it in detail, you become more familiar with the prospect of having the conversation, and when it actually happens, you will be more at ease. So I definitely recommend this technique for introverts. So this is it. I hope you enjoyed my tips. Let me know in the comments below if you're an introvert, and if you have any other tips for other people who think of themselves as introverts as well. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.